All right, next up is class Osteichthyes. Now, this is actually a super class, but first we'll call it a class. And these are our bony fish. The key feature of this particular class is that they have a calcium bone or skeleton. Now, if you look at all the fish that we've talked about, we can break them up into three categories. One is class Agnatha. They have a skeleton made out of cartilage and no jaws. Then we move on to class Conrichthyes, where we have sharks that have a skeleton made out of cartilage, but with jaws. And then finally we have class Osteichthyes, which have jaws, just like the sharks do, but their bones have changed, or their skeleton has changed to include bones that have calcium. Now, most of these are thin, flexible spines, not as thick as your bones, and there's about 26,000 different kinds of fish in the ocean. Now, this accounts for about 95% of all the fish. They belong to this particular class. The other 5% belong to Conrichthyes and Agnatha. Now, here in California, we have a wide variety of fish. We have sheephead, we have different kinds of marlin, we have different types of perches, of smelts, way too many to go over in one class. The one fish you probably should know is our state fish, which is the Garibaldi. It's this really bright orange color, almost like that, that Silver Creek, orange type color. But if you were to, strip off all the flesh, you would be left with a skeleton. And you have a couple different examples here. A really cool one is the seahorse right here. You can even see right here, here, and here that gill covering called the operculum, which we're going to cover in just a bit here. This is just a close-up headshot of something like a barracuda. Fish do in fact have teeth. It depends on what fish they are. This one is called a parrotfish. It bites through coral, has these two really heavy plates that act like teeth in the front. An outside anatomy is basically the same as that of sharks. There's been two small changes. One is this outside gill covering, number 8, called the operculum. I'm going to go back to our Garibaldi. In the sharks, you were able to see the gills, but in the Garibaldi, you can't. It has this weird little flap made out of bone that covers and protects the gills. The other difference is when we were looking at the sharks, we counted 1, 2, 3 fins. The first fin, the pectoral fin, has shifted up here next to the operculum, and then you still have the pelvic and the anal fin. You still got your lateral line, your first dorsal, your second dorsal, and your caudal fin. So like something on the Garibaldi, you could still see the first dorsal over here. You have your pectoral fin shifted up, your pelvic fin down here, your anal fin here, and your caudal fin over here. And you can see this on basically any fish that you look at. You have the first and the second. There's some weird exceptions, where they only have one dorsal fin. Even characters from Finding Nemo, like, first, second dorsal, pectoral, pelvic, anal fin, caudal fin. There are, like I said, weird exceptions like Dory, who has her first and second dorsal fin fused together. Or Gill, who has like a really long first dorsal fin. But all the parts are still basically the same. And finally, just getting through class Mammalia. So these are our mammals. So what makes them different? Well, obviously they're mammals, but this is a totally different class. It still belongs to phylum Chordata because they have or had a notochord at some time. There are key features to make them class Mammalia, which makes them different than reptiles or fish or sharks or hagfish and lamprey. Or birds, because birds are also in phylum Chordata, so are reptiles. But for class Mammalia, there's 3 things. 1, we have a 4-chambered heart, so we belong to class Mammalia. Second, they feed their young with milk, which no other class does. And then we also breathe air, and they don't extract oxygen from the water. So like us, we belong to class Mammalia. We are not extracting oxygen from the water. And what ends up happening is mammals evolved on land, but somewhere around 50 million years ago, a little bit after the dinosaurs, we began to transition back into the water. And fossil records have shown that, fins, if you were to look at a fin, there are still limb bones inside of it. And there are also pelvic bones where the hind legs used to be. So something like a whale here, if you were to take off the fin, open it up, you would still see phalanges or finger bones. You would still see a humerus and an ulna, which is like the bone in your hand that rotates. Over here, where the pelvis used to be, there's still the remnants of hind legs or a pelvis. And we think, again, at some point, because we do have evidence in the fossil record that shows larger hind fins and more hand-like appendages here in the front. But eventually, over time, they lost these things, and there's only remnants of what used to be a full hind leg and full front arms. So now we drop down to something even more specific. We drop down to something called an order. So we're going to be looking first at order Cetacea. This includes whales, dolphins, porpoise, and there's about 80 different kinds of cetaceans. So 80 different kinds of whales or dolphins or porpoises. So what's the big difference between a whale and a dolphin? Really, these are true whales. We call them baleen whales. It's what we call a true whale. And these are plankton eaters. They don't have teeth. They have these weird combs called baleen, which I'll show you in a little bit. And then we have our toothed whales, which typically feed on fish and squid. I don't know when it happened, but there are some things that look a little bit different than an orca or a sperm whale, both of which have teeth, and we happen to call those things dolphins. But in reality, they're just toothed whales. That's all they are. They're just smaller toothed whales, and they have sort of this lens or dome-shaped head. As a matter of fact, killer whales and pilot whales and these pygmy whales, they all kind of belong to the same family, along with every other dolphin. So this is a true whale here. So another thing is they have two blowholes here at the top, and they have these weird little teeth or combs called baleen for filtering out plankton. This includes blue whales, humpback whales, but something like this, a sperm whale, has teeth. So this is more closely related to dolphins than it is a humpback whale. So here's a Pacific white-sided dolphin. These are going to have teeth. Your typical bottlenose dolphin. Here's a pilot whale, which is in fact a dolphin. You can see that weird lens-shaped head there. Killer whale, still considered a dolphin, or you can consider dolphins toothed whales. You can kind of go back and forth on either one. And here's a porpoise, again, still pretty much considered a dolphin. The reason they call them, porpoise from a dolphin is porpoise tend to have this shorter nose. So like right here, you're looking at these shirts like, what's my porpoise? This is more like a porpoise because it has a short nose. This is more like a dolphin. And then we have order Carnivora. And these are what we call our pinnipeds. So these are seals, walrus, sea lions. And the key feature here is that they are carnivorous and they have canine teeth. Now, things like dogs belong to this group, order Carnivora. Things like wolves, tigers, lions, bears. So bears and seals and lions are all related to each other because they have canine teeth. Something like a sperm whale or a dolphin or a killer whale, they have teeth, but they don't have canine teeth. And so how would you tell a difference between a seal and a sea lion? Well, pretty easy. Seals don't have external ears, and sea lions do. The other thing are their flippers. On a sea lion, their flippers are kind of extended out to the side. On a seal, they just kind of dangle right off the back. But the ears are the easiest way to tell. So like if I'm looking at this, so I'm going to go back to this. Seals don't have ears, but sea lions do. So this would be a sea lion, and this would be a seal. So, you've probably seen this guy in memes before, and you could see that he doesn't have a weird ear flap. Therefore, he is a seal and not a sea lion.